for this collaborative conversation. If you're new to us, we are the Core Collaborative. And the reason this session is set up as a Zoom meeting instead of a webinar is because our hope is that you collaborate with us, that you have questions, that you have comments, you have connections, things that you wonder. So please share those. My name is Isaac. I'm the Director of Professional Learning, and I want to take just a quick moment to honor the impact of someone in my life. I had a moment today where I got to go to my daughter's school and meet with her kindergarten teacher, the lovely Miss Norman, and just have to do a general shout out as a parent to all educators out there. Thank you for the way you love our kids and what that means to us day in and day out. We're going to do a quick wrap around. You're going to meet these 4 amazing panelists, and they're going to share who they are, why they're here tonight, and take a moment to honor the impact of someone in their lives. I'm going to start with Isaiah, because on my screen, you're in the top left.
And we need to announce Isaiah's role at the Core Collaborative.
Yes.
So we need to do a drum roll, and Ruth is gonna cheer you on too. Real drum roll, come on. I think we'll have a harmonica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like a jazz band.
Yeah, so Isaiah, go ahead, Isaac, because you slaughtered his title right before.
Yeah. I hope I'll mess it up
We
again.
get it right now.
So Isaiah is our Director of Professional Learning, and he's focused on leadership. And now I really am going to mess it up again. And a lot of other things. Take it away, Isaiah.
Leadership, equity, and
leadership,
school
equity, and school climate. So
Thank you.
I'm glad to be on board here. I'm glad to kind of take our partnership that we've had for the last few years and take it to a different level. As we continue to grow and we can grow together with this. And so I'm super excited to be joining on and being a part of that, and for that to be public now.
Right on. I didn't even expect it to be public.
Yeah.
Sorry for the harmonica surprise.
Yeah.
It's a great time for it.
Yeah.
But if I can just quickly pose an honorary impact to, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. We've had some internal conversations about just the immense pressure that school officials at the leadership level and at in the classroom level and even at the service level are just facing this particular year, between navigating through the pandemic, between navigating through staffing shortages, mental health issues, and the controversial issues or perspectives that are being cemented or grounded. Schools are dealing with a lot this year, and so it's October, but it feels like it's April. And
I didn't know there was any controversy.
Oh, none at all.
Where have I been?
It's all related to sports.
That's a really nice thing, Isaiah, that, to honor the impact of the folks that are really getting impacted right now. That's really nice.
And next we have Paul Martuccio. I'll let you introduce yourself. And
just wait.
There you go.
Tell you what, I've been upgraded to a harmonica. I'm all about it. So good evening. And I'm Paul Martuccio. I'm the principal of the Public School 13, Staten Island, New York. Powerhouse school because of a powerhouse staff. And
the lab school.
The lab site. There isn't any question about it. And it's interesting. People say the lab site as if we have the answers, and actually it's quite the opposite. We make a commitment to bubbling beakers and visualize green and blue and smoke. We're just committed to finding the answers, and we think that we have a couple of things figured out. But as soon as you think you're done, you've only just begun. I want to build on what Isaiah talked about. There is pressure, and I feel it as a principal, and I really want to shout out my teachers and my staff and everyone in my building, but especially my assistant principals for holding me up, because I would have fallen down if it wasn't, I would have fallen down already if it wasn't for them. Amazing people. And so So shout out to them.
Woo!
Ooh, nice.
Excellent. And now everybody else.
It's like,
drum
what did I
roll.
get myself into?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Everybody else, let's get a drum roll going for Paul Bloomberg.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna I'm gonna do it for myself.
There you go.
Okay. It wasn't quite as beautiful as the introductions for Paul and Isaiah because they're more beautiful than me. But what am I supposed to do?
Just say who you are and then
Okay.
take a second to honor.
So
impact.
I am wearing this tuxedo shirt tonight because I've been sick for 2 days and I kind of saw it because we bought it for a wedding. It's like as a costume. Well, because it was fun, but I wore a black one. But we bought black, blue, and pink because we couldn't decide when we were on the plane. And then of course I'm a lot bigger than I thought I was. And so I decided to honor the MTSS inaugural collaborative by wearing this beautiful symbolic tuxedo shirt. And I'm the CEO and founder of the Core Collaborative, also an author of a collaborative author on a few books. And just more than anything, I'm a teacher. I'm a parent, try to be. I'm a son. And I love these people that we get to partner with because I really believe that like the impact team is getting bigger. And it's really cool because I'm learning a ton from everyone that sits around the table. And I would like to honor, well, I thought about this. My brother Joe and I don't get along very well, but I have this harmonica because of him. And we've kind of gone through the controversy. But as I was playing it, I almost started cracking up because my brother, I was a saxophonist, and my brother was not a musician, but he would try to compete and he would do these crazy, like improvisatory harmonica solos to compete with my saxophone. So I want to honor my brother Joe. And if Joe, if you're listening, like, come on, let's talk some more. And then I also want to honor the leaders in Yoruba school district. I've been working with them a ton, and I just think they're the most incredible people and just genuine, authentic, really care, never say no to any of my wild ideas. And I just think the world of them, and I think the world of the teachers and the leadership and everyone in Yoruba, and a lot of us have partnered with them. And I just wanted to give that shout out to them. And Joey, my brother.
Perfect. And last but not least, the wonderful Ingrid. We'll give you a little
hello. I
lead
get to
in.
follow tuxedo shirt and harmonica.
There you go.
And then you also get a nod from Ruth.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get an extra surprise.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ingrid Twyman, and I am in California. I'm not currently, but I'm from California, and am a newer partner consultant with the Core Collaborative. I feel like our worlds just sort of collided, and our visions were aligned, and it just hasn't really stopped ever since. So I'm really blessed to be also at the table with this amazing group here tonight. And I wanted to think about impact. I'm teaching some courses in a teacher prep program, online courses, and one of the courses just started is the second half of the semester. So I was just reading through some of their initial pre-work, and it's a class on multilingual instruction. They're writing about their language positionalities. And I was so inspired today I read at least 20 of them, of just these incoming teachers going through what, we know everyone's going through and going into this field and the work, but just the way that they were so grounded in themselves culturally and linguistically, and taking that approach to language instruction and honoring home language and home culture for the students that they're going to serve in California. I'm like, if we can have teachers with this mindset going into the classroom, more, that's going to make huge change. So I was super inspired today. So I want to
I think there's something about this generation too, of like, I don't know what the official name of it is, but I recognize it a lot in my nieces and nephews, and this altruism that is just like a part of who they are. It's really cool. I can't wait till they run for office.
Yeah. They don't take anything at face value, that's for sure. It's great.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So Isaac, I'll introduce you. No, I'm not going to introduce you, but I'm going to give you a triad of introduction. You're going to get, then you're going to get a nod from Ruth, and then you're going to get this.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
This is Isaac.
Hey, my 5-year-old Jane does that and says it's whale breaths. So you can learn to not really meditate, I guess, but just be at peace if you, if you breathe with that. Breathe like a whale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Isaac, and I'm just really excited to get going. So let's jump in and talk about what we mean when we're talking about this Impact Team MTSS framework. And I know Paul B is going to kick us off.
Yes, and just so you're aware of it, this is all of our work. And it's been really super cool over the last few months, really bringing a group together with different kinds of expertise. Because I think Ingrid and I were talking, why don't these people in these different circles connect? I think, Isaiah, we were talking about it as well. And we are the core collaborative. And so you don't last here very long if you're not collaborative, because we believe that we need each other, right? We need each other because we can't be experts in everything. And we need school partners like Paul, because they trust us and they try things out and they give us feedback and we all get better. So it's this really cool reciprocal relationship. If you're a practitioner, and I kind of still think I am, but I just think that the relationships that we have with our clients, and really Paul is just, a very good friend of mine and just an amazing leader and a friend of everyone, and very handsome. He told me to tell you that he's handsome. But I wanted to just make sure that everyone know that this is a collaborative approach, and we'll probably be bringing in other people as we see that we need it, because like everything at the Core Collaborative, it'll evolve, it'll change, and it'll get better and better and better, because we have really great clients that give us really good feedback, and we pretty much revise everything, well, probably a little too often, but usually annually. So I'm just going to give you kind of a crash course, but I'm going to give you kind of a crash course on the overarching principles, not so much all the details. We do have a self-assessment. I don't know, are we going to give that thing out?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let me try to move some things around here. Sorry about that. Here, I'm going to stop the share because we're going to be observing Paul's incredible kids. Okay. So can you all see that?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if that's the first slide. It's not. So and y'all chime in, but I know you're going to have a lot of time to talk. So I'm not going to go into detail around any of the building blocks because you're the expert, not me. I'm just going to kind of give an overview of the model. So basically, what we've done is Impact Teams has always been a model where you look at evidence sources, lots of different kinds of evidence to make decisions about what kids need. And it's always from the very beginning had tiers of support. But there's been some critical things we believe that are missing, although my friend Isaiah said it was there, but I wasn't confident that some of these things were there until Isaiah shadowed me and said, wow, it's here. And he's going to tell you more about what it is. But so really what we did is we looked at the expertise that lived within our organization and outside of our organization, and then just really thought carefully about what are the things that are absolutely needed if we're really going to support kids. And what makes our model different than any other MTSS framework out there. Our model is the only MTSS framework where the kids are driving the show. So that means that they are making decisions about the kinds of support they need. And we've been doing it for years. And so now we're going to add some other decisions for the kids to make around a bigger variety of domains. But we've been piloting it for a while, and a lot of this stuff was piloted at Paul's school, and it works. And so we're going to actually hear from some of PS13's kids today, so you can kind of get a sense as to how we're going to do it. So basically, we have on the outer ring professional learning communities, a la impact teams. We believe that leadership should be shared across the organization. And that means with students, with community members, and with parents too, and teachers, obviously. So leadership across the organization, because we all need to be a part of creating really quality systems of supports for kids. And then obviously the goal is always going to be the same, that we want every single student, every teacher, every parent, every stakeholder to feel confident in anything that they set their mind to. We want them to build, we want to build their efficacy. So that is the same. And we know in order to do that, we have to have strong systems of support. We have to have really good networks. We have to be able to collaborate. We have to engage in collaborative inquiry, because human beings are really tricky. And it's not always so easy to decide exactly what a student needs. And it takes some time. And what this framework is not, it's not about looking at a universal screener and sorting kids into groups at all, because they're human beings. Right, Isaiah? We don't want to label them. It's just where they're at in the learning at the time. And so then we look at this framework, and we'll be kind of talking about it later in depth, but we have balanced assessment, personalized high impact instruction, culturally responsive sustaining practices, restorative practices, and relational literacy, and then a focus on community-based partnerships. So that's a very quick overview, and we're gonna keep going here. I'm gonna try to keep going. So same as before, if we want to build efficacy in our stakeholders, specifically our students, we want to make sure that they feel safe physiologically and psychologically. We want to make sure that they're getting really quality feedback and coaching that is grounded in criteria that they co-construct, so they're driving the show. We want to make sure that we have lots and lots of really quality models for our students, so they know what success is, and so that they can learn vicariously through others. So it isn't about tracking kids. It is a more heterogeneous model, because we need models. And then at the end of the day, the whole framework is built around kids meeting goals that they have. And we don't judge them for where they're at. They're at where they're at. We don't call them far below basic, and A student. This is where they're at in the learning. This is what they need and what's their next step. And some kids need to go a little further than others for a whole wide variety of reasons, okay? So obviously we want to do that because it strengthens their efficacy, And we want every human being that we encounter to feel confident in what they do. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Our goals are the same as they were before. And this fits very well with MTSS. We are doing support around academics. We will be supporting our students in building emotional capacity and social capacity, right? And so these are the 3 areas that kids will be working towards in core instruction and beyond. And so every student needs something different. So the combination of how we deliver the intervention or the support will really be guided by the student and what they think they need and what their next learning step is in partnership with their teachers and their families. And then our goal, just like before, this is how we make decisions about the levels of support kids need. They have to talk about their goals. They have to talk about why those goals are important to them. They have to be able to make connections. What do I already know about these goals? Where am I at in relationship to my goal? And what does success look like, sound like, feel like? And then we really push kids to figure out how they're going to reach those goals. So why our MTSS framework is so different is because it's very transparent. The kids are a part of every aspect of the learning process. And we know it to be true. And the effect sizes that come with that, says the visible learning research, are high. And I'm going to shut up. So, Paul, I can't see you because I have this microphone thing here. Are there any questions so far? And it could even be from our panel, or anything that you'd like to add as a panel. Just jump right in, and then I'm going to front load you here in a second, Paul. Any words of wisdom? What are you thinking, Ingrid?
Well, I think my favorite just whole part of this is that it is student driven. And so that's something unique and can be scary and overwhelming to think about as a school leader. And how do we implement this? But
Yeah.
I think grounding it in building efficacy for students to have that ownership is really powerful. So
yeah, and by the way, in most every state on teachers' evaluations, they have assessment for learning, yet we never see it implemented deeply in schools, and it has the highest effect, right? And so teachers are being evaluated on it, but we're not seeing it living deeply in schools. Now it lives deeply in our schools because of the effect and the belief and the moral purpose behind it. But thank you. What are you thinking, Isaiah?
I think there's an important piece to kind of maybe ground this, and as at least the way I've been kind of thinking about this is, when you think about the history of this idea of MTSS, multi-tier systems of support, one of the, I think, contextual pieces that's important to note is what it was before it was MTSS, and it was originally called RTI, response to intervention. And when it was RTI, or response to intervention, that kind of pushed this idea that, hey, this is about what we need to do to the student, right? We're responding to the student. And one of the beauties that I love about the change and kind of thinking around this whole idea is to move away from this what we're going to do to students, to how can we create a system of support for the learner, right? And what I love about looking at this particular way that we're framing it, the traditional model of MTSS, which is kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, in any research you read about multi-tier systems of support, they will really push that. The problem in most places is that they don't really have a strong core. There's not enough thinking about that tier 1, which is all students.
Yeah.
What I love about this particular framework is that it starts kind of with that idea. So you're thinking about this whole idea now as a multi-tiered system. The whole system is supporting this learner, and we're thinking about it where's that strong core. Where this comes in handy is it really centers that idea of cultivating empowered learners in that tier one, in that first core.
Yeah. I also think, like, I'm seeing SEL, and I know we need to do designated SEL instruction. I know the kids need SEL instruction for SEL instruction, but what I always think about, Paul and I have been on this journey for a few years now about integrating, dispositional learning, social emotional learning into the learning process. And I think that that's also a place where this really stands out. It's not done only in isolation, because learning is really emotional and it's social. And so we can't divorce these things and say, oh, the kids need, because chances are they need all of these things, right? And it's a combination of these things that they need. But I really believe that if you trust the students, they lead the way, and they know what they need when they're given a leadership role. Paul, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking about probably 1,000 things right now as I listen to everyone, and I want to go all the way back to what Ingrid spoke about, and marry it. I'm going to try to marry it to what Isaiah was talking about too, because I just think that it's so powerful, and it's where we're trying to go at the Public School 13, specifically bringing in the families who have traditionally been like left behind or not invited to the table. And so what we learned last year when we were all at home, and we spent the last year and a half in their living rooms, and they spent the last year and a half in our living rooms, the power of relationships. And I want to bring what you were talking about, Paul, in too, is that, this is an emotional thing, and it's a social thing. And then now back to Ingrid, we did a little study last year about how and if we meet our students and their families in their home language. And we did this virtually because we had to. But what we found, just to give you a quick example, what we learned is that we have a little girl and her dad, and we communicated with dad in Spanish about using a 5-finger retell. It was the thing that she was having trouble with. And so we had them, they were watching TV at home. They watch TV in their native language of Spanish. And then when the TV show was over, we talked to dad in Spanish about a 5-finger retell. We provided him the opportunity, and he jumped at the chance because we met him right where he was, the family. Right where the family was. And another thing that we're talking about now, Paul, is surface deep and transfer. And what I want to tell you is that learning in the home language of Spanish transferred into English. And the child then, about 2 weeks later, not a lot of time, about 2 weeks later, was able to transfer that learning into English and move along the continuum of reading. And so I'm hearing about multi-tiered systems of support. I'm hearing about meeting students and families right where they are. I'm hearing about this is greater than tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Yeah. And that's what impact teams, figuring out where students are, what they need, working on relationships. It works. We've seen it. And I promise I'll be quiet after this. Our little study
they're great
and proved that students that have the box checked in terms of being an English language learner and or having an IEP, a student with a disability, moved faster when we met them in their home language along the reading continuum than their general education counterparts.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
And I'm sure that Ingrid and Isaiah, once we get there, can give you maybe some reasons why, which I know you know why, but they're very technical sort of people. I also think that what comes with RTI, RTI2, and even MTSS across the country, it's shameful to the kids. The kids know exactly what's going on. And what I don't get is we all have to start somewhere when we're learning. And this myth that we all are at the same place at the same time, it has never been true. It is not true. You know, Isaiah has expertise that I don't have. So when I'm going to learn something that he's going to be ahead of me. But what's really cool is the power of social capital. I'm friends with Isaiah, right? So I can learn from Isaiah, who's an expert. And I think that we have to take the shame out of this, because this is just what learning is. And you identify where you're at, what your goal is, and there's no shame in that. And so that won't be a part of this model, you know, because we're not going to be calling kids 1, 2s, 3s, and 4s. We're not going to be labeling them by grades. We just can't, because it's so destructive to them. So, hey, Isaac, I want you to wait, because I want you to do a deep dive on high impact instruction. And I want Paul to set this up. Okay. So is that cool? Okay, so really quickly, for those of you that may not know, this is the formative assessment process. Questioning should be in there as well, but I just didn't put the new slide in. And so formative assessment, when we assess kids, it's a process. We're not testing them. They're involved in every aspect of the learning process. And as you can see by the cool little effect sizes beneath, it accelerates learning. 0.4 equals 1 year's learning in 1 year's time. And so you can see that these strategies, when used interdependently, really can accelerate the learning. And it's also really good for kids, because we're teaching them how to set goals. There's a moral purpose behind it. Teachers like to do it because they feel this is why I got into teaching, to help our kids learn. And so it's really all about learning. And they really are the silver bullet. You know, everyone's trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to buckle down and we're going to engage kids in the formative assessment process because of the efficacy of it. And so, Paul, if you would like to just briefly do a setup about what your a couple of your students are going to do, and then we're going to ask the audience, yeah, you have to do something if you're there, to name the strengths. Ingrid, I see you laughing.
No.
I'm on a lot of cold medication. I might be a little high from cold medication. I got you to laugh too, Isaiah. Yeah, so set us up, Paul, and then kind of also share with everyone the impact that this work has had on these kids.
Yeah, so one of my favorite things, and the thing that made the most sense to me, is when Paul really hit hard that self and peer assessment isn't something that we do at kids, and formative assessment specifically is something that we do with our kids, and it's all about student ownership, and they will tell us where to go. You're going to see two of my students here, and I'm thinking about what I want to tell you and what I don't want to tell you, because I don't want to spoil it. So maybe can I save the part for afterward? After
Yeah. Do whatever you want.
Because what happened here is beautiful, and yet it's not obvious. But I'll clue everybody in afterward. I'll clue everybody in afterward.
And then for Isaac, Isaiah, Paul, and Ingrid, I also would like you to talk about the strengths of the students through the lens of the model of your, the ownership of your model. So basically, maybe if you see evidence of CRSE, mention that, because I think it would help everyone to see and hear what experts think about these amazing students. Sound good? Okay, cool. Yeah. So audience and friends, jot down the strengths. You can put them in the chat box. And Isaac, I am sure, will be an amazing facilitator, and I'll give him a harmonica introduction when he facilitates. Here we go.
Okay, so my feedback was to make the conclusion connect to my introduction. So how I did that was, so I drafted many times and then after I drafted, you can see here that it's really short. And then I went back to the intro to see if it connected. But I see that it's sort of connected, but in a different way. And it actually connected. And then now here, so I gathered up facts and then I numbered them for the subtopic. But my main goal was to connect the conclusion to the intro. So now I wrote everything and then I was up to my conclusion and then I thought about the main idea and it was about a knight, right? And then I read my intro many times and then I thought of a conclusion in my head, then put it here and then saw if it matched. Because yeah, we can't just copy the intro down on the conclusion. So yeah, I put it in my own words again and then I read it and then read the introduction together and they matched. And so that's how I got my conclusion to match. And yeah, and the feedback really helped me with my writing because if the conclusion was off topic like my Nissan GTR, then it wouldn't make sense, you know? Like the reader was like so excited with the subtopics, the intro, you know, like and at the end, like you started strong and then you started like and then you
down like a mountain,
and then ended like down, like, you know. So yeah.
so that's why you have to like really actually like
Use
pay
the
attention
feedback.
and use the feedback. So like from that, how she said make your main idea
And my strategy
connect
was
with the conclusion.
kind of like, you know, like hard because I had to draft many times to get the
But then that actually paid off.
yeah. It
So
actually
this.
paid off.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get off this PowerPoint so we can be human beings and not look at slides. Sound good? And Isaac is going to facilitate and then Paul will give you context at the end
Perfect.
because he wanted to save it for the end. I'll give you a harmonica introduction to Paul.
There you go. Can never have too much.
Okay.
And anybody out there in Zoom or Facebook world, let us know if you've got a thought. We can on Zoom, we can pop you up on the screen, or you can just throw it in the chat. I'll get us started while we watch for those to pop up. Focusing especially on in the instructional piece, you can see the learning that's happened in those classrooms because the kids understand their job as a learner. They need to understand where they are in their learning. Like, okay, I've been doing this well. I know the criteria for this task, for this writing. I can talk about it very fluidly, talking about my title, my subtitle, all my details. And the two kids obviously have that shared clarity. And then as Paul B mentioned earlier, that importance of knowing, identifying, and being able to talk about dispositional learning. So they may not have always labeled it, but he was talking about his own strategy. He knew that was something to reflect on. He said, you know, it was a little bit difficult, a little bit hard. It took me a lot of drafts, but right away he's rewarded for that
many
perseverance.
times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because his buddy says, yeah, but it paid off. And that's really the goal of all of this, is that we equip every learner with that identity of a learner to where they understand I'm somebody that when I put in effort can change what I put out into the world. I can change what I understand, change what I can do. And that's the best evidence of effective instruction there is. Get a quick video of kids talking.
Awesome.
I was hoping in the time I shared that some people would throw some stuff in that.
Anybody else? Strengths.
Are we?
I
pretty
was just going to say, because I teach fourth grade, work with fourth.
Oh, she froze. No.
Of, oh, my conclusion and all that stuff. And And so
Can you
just
say
with,
that again? Because you froze.
with just all the, oh, sorry.
It's not your fault.
You know, well, technology.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an EL teacher, so I work a lot with mostly fourth and fifth grade, and a lot in their DLI program. So just hearing them saying intro and conclusion and tying it together, I mean, trying to get fourth graders to write 4 sentences was like pulling teeth at the beginning of the year. Now we've gotten them, so they're writing, now they can write 15 sentences on something. So we're really slowly but surely working on it. But I love that conversation, because kids don't understand about writing drafts, and they think this isn't perfect. I just slapped something down on paper. You mean it's not perfect? So I love that whole that collaboration between those two kids, and the back and forth between them, and just even using like I said, intro and conclusion.
Yeah. Well, they're demonstrating a revision mindset, right? They know that learning requires revision. Right? We constantly are revising our thinking, and they're not punished for it either. They're actually given accolades for it. And so I think it's a badge of honor at Paul's school. You know, yes, I don't think this was on the YouTube channel. Anybody else? Or Isaac, is there anyone in the chat?
No, thank you, Lisa, not yet. And I also heard
Ingrid was gonna say something.
Yeah.
Well, as I was watching the interaction, I put on my lens of looking at culturally, right, the two boys interacting with each other, and knowing that in order to get to this space, right, there has to be a lot of work in the classroom in developing that safe climate, that trust, so that students feel safe enough to have those conversations and to put themselves out there and say, this is what I did, and this is where I struggled, but this is where I'm going. And I was literally just watching his peer, the listening, and just like also, you know, being aware and starting to deepen our awareness of the cultural behaviors of our students in our classroom when they're interacting, and, you know, whether it's proximity, eye contact, just, you know, the way that they're interacting and engaging with each other, I think is really powerful, because this is such a close interaction. And so there's just things that we can build on, the strengths of our students and what they're really comfortable with culturally, and having those conversations. So I was kind of just looking at some of those nuances as well.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Thank you for your insight. Isaiah, what are you thinking?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of Ingrid as well too. I mean, it even starts with just the choice of the example that the student chose to, you know, talk about the Nissan GT, right? And just picking something that was important to him and that was passionate to him, and thinking about the best way. We talk all the time about part of this process being personalized, and even when we think about this from the cultural responsive standpoint, how important is it for us to be able to, in any sense of this, be able to talk about our experiences, and those experiences turn up in different ways. So we don't know what or why he was particularly interested in talking about that particular subject, and it doesn't matter. What it matters is that he chose that one because there was some type of personal connection between that and the learning. And from there, even the other kid was able then to be able to identify the process through that particular example. So there's so much when we think about the framework, and I'm trying not to get too technical, but when we think about the framework itself, and we think about the 5 different letters that are involved in there, it's so cool to kind of see the interweaving of kind of the supports, the personal learning, the cultural responsiveness, and even the community base too, which I think is identified or exposed in this particular example as well.
Yeah, where I have seen really MTSS gone wrong is it, even though it's supposed to be this holistic thing, they break everything into pieces, and there's not enough time in the day to support the kids with everything, because they're thinking about them separately instead of, you know, holistically. So I think that'll also be a big power to this model, that it's the kids engaging in what you just saw, and then the teacher knows hey, might be some support that you need. What do you think? We're going to ask our kids permission. We're going to ask their opinion about how they'd like to learn something. What might be the best way for you to engage in deliberate practice? Like what works for you, instead of imposing structures on kids, right? Like it just drives me crazy. Like, okay, a kid doesn't like to use a graphic organizer. Don't make him use one, right? Like it just doesn't ever, it never ever made sense to me because we don't give kids the voice. Paul, you're on, my friend.
I want to start with none of this matters if it doesn't make it into the hands of the kids. Period. End of story for me. This was a remarkably powerful video for our school because Neshwan, the boy that did all of the talking, just a year and a half before this video was made, wouldn't talk to his teachers at all, wouldn't talk to anyone. And Zachariah, these students were chosen on purpose. Zachariah wouldn't sit in his seat. And so when I heard Ingrid talking about, wow, did you see how he was listening? I happen to know Zachariah. His mom came up to school. She would watch him walk around the classroom and do laps. And so I start with none of this, with a very emphatic, none of this matters if it doesn't make it into the hands of the kids, because I saw what it did for these two students. And then I saw what watching these, the whole building knows them.
They did. Yeah. Everyone knew them.
Everyone knows these guys. And they said, wait a minute, what is happening here? Neshwan wouldn't be quiet before he wouldn't talk. And so one of the charges that you gave to us, Paul, was, does social emotional learning live here? Was Zachariah aware? Did I see him flinch a couple times because he wanted to get in there? Absolutely.
Yeah, he did.
Was he self-aware? Was he making responsible decisions? Was there executive function happening there? And yes, and that's something that is obvious to me because I have experience with them. But I think, and I agree with, there was perseverance. I think someone wrote, Kristen wrote, well, you can really see the perseverance. And I agree with you 1000%. And I just love that he said, and it took me many revisions. He voiced his comfortability with the fact that, and Paul, you said it earlier, it's a badge of honor in our place. And that's where the culture of efficacy, and that was 15 slides and 15 minutes ago. That's where this lives. And it changed everything. This was one of the first videos. We chose the students on purpose. We couldn't believe what they were able to do. And I think that it was just because we asked them to do it and we put them into a place to do it. And I think that might be the moral to the story.
And we co-design everything there, right? Everything is co-designed with the kids. So we're going to learn something new. We're going to co-design it. They're going to have their fingerprints all over it because they have to own it. And we're going to adjust it and they're going to adjust it. So we're partners with kids. And I think that's tricky, because we teach like the way we were taught. And none of us usually were taught that we are a partner with our teacher, So I think that this humanizing of, teaching kids, we just have to go, and we really have to go there now. So that's kind of like how we make decisions with students and partnership with them about the kinds of support they need, whether they be academic, social, or emotional, or other. And so that is the first step, right, is a quality core. And so as we partner with you, it will be partnering with you to develop a strong core, but then we also have to think about the stop the bleeding. Right? Because right now we have third graders that can't hold pencils. And I'm at a school now that 75% of the kids are 4 years below grade level. And they couldn't close the opportunity gap before. So we also have to come up with really quality systems because we're going through things that we've never gone through before. And so it really will require us to think outside the box And what's also different about our model, it's customized to every school because every school is different, right? And so we have a framework, but then we customize this for the school. So Isaac, can you bring up, I'm gonna just flash this cool thing that our creative team made, just to give everyone a visual. And then Isaac actually has a rubric, a self-assessment that we're going to guide you to very, very briefly. So peeps, we're not going to go into all the competencies. We're just going to tell them big ideas, and then they're going to get the competencies. So how we're going to work in partnership with you is stage one is formatively assessing your system, right? Looking at the 5 building blocks, looking at the core, and looking to see where are we at with these things. What are our strengths and where are opportunities to make progress? And then we'll partner with you and teachers and parents with a guiding coalition of people to actually figure out the particular model at the school that works well for families, that works well for kids, that works well within the context of the school. And it has to be that way. It can't be a cookie cutter thing. You can go across the street in New York and the school is completely different than PS13. All of us know that. So you'll always start with this formative assessment. So here's the visual. Oh, the visual is on the rubric, isn't it, Isaac?
Yeah.
Yeah, then I don't have to pull up a stupid slide.
You got it. Here we go.
Okay, cool. Okay, so just go to, so there's the visual. And so you can see the 5 building blocks. Those building blocks live in every tier of support, right? So those building blocks live across the system. Now, strengthening systems of support, that's really the infrastructure that we have to build, right? Like, when are teachers going to meet and plan? When, how are they going to walk to learn? Are we going to use asynchronous instruction for tier 2 and tier 3? Like, all those things we have to sort out based on the tools that the school has. And then also we will also be recommending stop the bleeding tools as well, with looking at what works clearinghouse and interventions that are on the market. There's a lot of junk on the market, but there's a lot of really good quality things. And we are not tied to a big corporate publishing company like that. So we can give schools really good advice. And our principals are the ones that really let us know the things that work for them. So that's all I'm going to say about systems of support. Isaac, briefly.
Yeah. So when we think about assessment, we approach it through the idea of a balanced assessment framework. And the real goal of this is that we gather all the quality evidence we can of how students are thinking. So we'll mix and match screeners that help us get a sense of who might need some extra support, benchmarks that help us know how students are progressing over time, as well as the products and performances we're doing in class day in and day out. And through this model, we triangulate all that information together so we can understand our students as fully as possible and be able to make more intelligent decisions.
Yeah. And so just one extra thing, just to make sure that we're really clear, is since the goal is building academic capacity, social capacity, and emotional, we have to gather evidence around those domains, right? And so, like, if we don't, or the school doesn't have a way to gather that, we will recommend something, or we'll build it with them. It really just depends on the school because every school is different, but we also want to be fiscally responsible. And if there are things in the school that would work, we should use them, right? Because why not? One thing to also note about balanced assessment, there's no assessment that's a silver bullet. That's why you have to gather multiple measures, and we have to gather student perception data, family perception data, their voice data, because they're the ones, teaching their students too. Like, we all have to be partners together. And so we will figure that out for schools. Some schools have these things in place. Some schools have a couple things in place and they need to work through others. So we'll build a strategic plan that is logical, that is not panic stricken, but we also will help build interventions immediately for the world that we're living in right now. And we have a lot of really good quality suggestions around that. But this is basically the balanced assessment framework. Now,
and our November collaborative conversation is going to dig into just balanced assessment.
Oh, thanks.
And so each of the next 5 months, these next 5 things we're looking at, we're going to spend the third Thursday of the month, get some experts together and have a conversation like this.
So this is yours and mine and anybody else's.
Yeah.
Lay it out, Isaac. You want to take it?
Yeah. So one of the greatest limiting factors we have in education is time. And so we look to the research to find out which strategies and which processes can we use to have the most impact in the least amount of time. And so when we think about high impact instruction, we're looking at the visible learning research. We're pulling from that, as Paul B kind of talked through earlier, and Paul M's video showed us. A huge piece of that is engaging and partnering with kids in the formative assessment process so that they engage in self and peer assessment. They're there to co-construct success criteria, because the more that the learning is about them and involving them, the deeper it's going to go. And of course, through our partnership with schools, we find and focus in on those other little pieces that work the best, whether it's classroom discussion, reciprocal teaching, whatever it might be.
Cool. And this was already a part of the model before, but we have really partnered with 2 amazing experts, Isaiah, Ingrid, and a lot of others in our network. Can you both talk a little bit before we go too far about, because CRSC lives here too. Like it just doesn't, it's not its own category. And so Isaiah, Ingrid, can you just talk briefly about the integration regarding like the strategy piece?
Yeah, I'll just maybe put a couple of points in, and then Ingrid, you can do so as well too. You know, and this goes to the conversation you were talking about that you and I had, Paul, at the very beginning. And when the more and more I look at this piece, people always ask all the time about, hey, what are the strategies you should use for cultural responsiveness, and give us the tools. And the more and more I think about it, like, the tools are there. The tools have always been there, and they're embedded here. But it's about being a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more specific, putting that equity lens when you do it. And a part of that comes from practice.
I like that.
When we're leaving, even as we're looking at this, so even in personalized, high impact instruction, I love as we look at these different pieces of evidence, you notice that, like in number 4, our team implement culturally responsive, trauma-informed strategies. So it's already embedded specifically in there to think about how can we ensure that when I think about culturally responsive, what I'm thinking about is, as we're talking about things, am I situating things on my experience as the teacher, or am I allowing students to situate it from their experiences? Because I like to say, you'll hear me say this all the time, that our perspectives are birthed from our experiences. And so the way that we see the world comes from the way that we experience the world. And that's apparent here as well.
Cool. Ingrid, you want to add on?
Yeah, and I think it's going to go. I think it's going to go into the next piece anyway. But that's why I was like, Isaiah and I are like, because I agree. It's just, I think that there's just a lot of misconceptions around culturally responsive, sustaining pedagogy, that it's something else and it's something new that I have to learn and try out. And so I really try to approach the work with teachers and leaders around one, which is self-assessment will be really great to kind of start thinking about what are we already doing, and then just elevating and just developing an awareness and foundational awareness of what it means to be culturally responsive, and having a shared understanding about that within the building. And so everyone on the team has the mindsets for it, but then it's looking at our practice and then figuring out how can we connect this to culture and the cultural experiences of our students. And so there's really, again, I think people will be surprised at once they start having that lens. I say culture responsive lens and equity lens, just like Isaiah, and you start, once you do it and it becomes part of your practice, you will notice it everywhere and find opportunity. And it's opportunities. I say it's opportunities to take what you're doing and elevate it to the next level and add that layer of culture and responsiveness to our students and the families that we serve. It's not rewriting, we're not throwing everything out, right? So I hope that that's a little bit less daunting, I guess, for some.
And can I add one more thing to that too? I keep thinking about this. Part of, I think, what makes it easier is when we allow for the personalized experience, because oftentimes when the culturally responsive piece comes in, culturally responsive and sustaining piece comes in, the reason why it's difficult because we're trying to do things from a perspective and experience that we don't know, that we don't understand. And so it's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to talk about something you don't know or don't understand. Allow students to talk about what they know. And they understand.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, like one of the highlights of my career has been partnering with you all. I've learned so much about the practices that I believe in, and you just like I've grown in my understanding because of my relationship with both of you. And I think that, so Ingrid is doing some work with PS9 in New York in District 31, same district as Paul. And I think there was that perception that we're going to go in and wipe everything out and And I think they're like felt very supported. Ingrid, worked off their strengths and just had them think about things differently. And I think that that's what we need right now. Yeah.
So I guess maybe going into this one really quickly is just, again, I think of it as like having that lens and again, developing the foundational understanding and then starting with the self. So this is also an inside out process, knowing our own cultural selves, our own cultural identity and the strengths we bring and the values and the beliefs and the biases that we bring. The more we just unpack that and just don't put it away in the closet or corner or whatever, the more we can be open to learning from each other. I've been doing this work for so many years, and every day I'm learning and reading something new and expanding my mind around this. So I think we can all do that collectively as we support each other. So it's just really, again, it's cultural, it's social, it's building that like even social construction within like a team, like a staff, and being able to understand and develop our own cultural competence. And then I think the other big piece around instruction is having that call to action to have our students become empowered enough to be able to stand for their own beliefs and have their own critical consciousness. Sometimes we just stop at like relevance. We think we are doing some great work in bringing in culturally relevant text and making connections that way. But there's like that layer of also building up our students. And we can do that through this framework by giving them the keys, right? Going to Dr. Muhammad saying we're cultivating the genius within this. It's in the students. Like Paul M., you talked about those boys. It was in those boys a year ago when he was running around and he was talking. We just had to have
everything they need right inside them, don't they?
It's just have a chance. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what it's about.
Yeah, I also just want to make sure that as you're looking at this seems very daunting. And so I wouldn't recommend doing the self-assessment by yourself because so it really probably shouldn't be a self-assessment. It should be a collect. Maybe we need to name it something different. But the design of the model is we will do a formative assessment day and give you clarity in the content so you're sure and understand what some of these things mean. And then your system will be asked to kind of make decisions about what are your strengths and what are your opportunities to make some progress. And then anytime that we say it's a strength, we have to have some evidence behind what we're thinking. So like, this isn't like this, like, Isaac threw it in the chat box, but that'll probably be the only time it'll ever happen because I think it could be really misunderstood. Anyway, so next, We have 2 more building blocks. Isaiah, you want to take this one?
It's jumping. There we go.
Yeah, and as I take this one too, just a shout out to Kristen, who's been placing some really big nuggets in the chat as well too. So
What'd she
really
say?
appreciate
Let's say
that.
what was something she said that you thought was terrific?
Just the some of the thoughts and comments just around the listening to kids, and I think actually that ties in to this next piece of restorative practices as well too. But this idea that we listen, we listen, don't label. I was going to say before label, but we don't. We listen and don't label. And the idea that we need to work with all students to build them up and encourage them by giving them the tools that they need to be successful. And part of that is just by listening to their story, listening to their experiences. Again, that it becomes difficult a lot of times because we make assumptions of what students need, and particularly from a cultural standpoint, we think, well, no, this kid is this or that, and so we struggle with trying to meet that need based off of what we think it is, rather than listening to them for what it actually is. And kind of tying this into this idea of restorative practices and relational literacy. That's a huge part of that. This opportunity to think about different protocols and practices specifically around the social and emotional needs of students, and why they are responding the way that they are. So even, and I'll shut up after this, but I'm struck by the example that Paul M gave about those 2 students, about what we know of them and kind of what we saw here.
Yeah.
And as my wife, who's a school psychologist who focuses on behavior, reminds me all the time, is that behavior, behavior tells us something. And so it's always, behavior is always a reaction to one of 2 things. It's either someone's trying to get something or they're trying to get away from something. And so being able to then listen to what that experience really is, to understand why are they acting or doing what they're doing, because they're trying to get something or get away from something, and trying to then decipher what that is. And I think that's what's demonstrated here in this particular piece. That is relational literacy.
Yeah. And so we're really lucky because we get to partner with cool human beings like Ingrid, Marisol, and Carolyn, who lead our restorative connected pathway. And like you'll start to see all the different authors that our collaborative has are this isn't our author, but it's a really good book. Rigorous PBL, we're really digging into surface deep and transfer, assessing respect, STARS book. I mean, I have piles of them here, but all of the expertise in our collaborative has really informed this work. And so you'll be working with experts in the field in a particular building block that you might need support in. Some things we believe you can do simultaneously, some things you can't. And so this idea that we're going to have MTSS living and breathing in 1 year, you're crazy. I have not seen a really quality model ever, because it's just about sorting kids and moving them around. And sometimes I have found that it does more harm than good. And on the learning identity of a kid, right? Like how they see themselves as a learner. Who wants to tackle this one? Martuccio. I know you didn't know anything about it, but you are such an amazing leader in terms of really partnering with parents and families. So you don't even need to look at this stuff because you live it and breathe it. But why is this a building block in our MT? And I'm putting him on the spot. He did not know he had to do this, but I know what he believes because we talk about it all the time. And I know what he does to create transparency in his system. Why is this so important to the model?
So I think, I touched on it earlier, making the connection with Ingrid, and for us, we had, I'll tell you a little bit about our data. 40% of our student body is Hispanic, and our Hispanic population makes up better than 60% of our students with IEPs. And we've shown progress. Our student, you know, Paul, but we've the most embarrassing thing that I can tell you is that about 5 years ago, 25% of my kids were on reading level as measured by the state assessment. And 5 years later, we've doubled it, better than 50%, more than doubled it, actually. So
and they're happy, and the kids are happy.
And the kids are happy. I mean, you saw,
and they're loved.
Yep. And well, and they know they're loved because we tell them
every day,
and we show them. But I think when I think about engaging families and having students think about how they're feeling when they're going through the work, the actual process of writing about their Nissan GTX, it's just, we're trying to build more than students that can write good conclusions. We want students, I guess it really boils down to executive function. And what we realize is, with the example that I was trying to give in terms of our Hispanic population, is giving them a seat at the table. And it's made the difference. You know, we got so far so fast in 5 years, we doubled it, and my superintendent was happy. I was happy. Everyone was happy. But the hardest thing to do after winning the Super Bowl is win it again. I'm in Staten Island, New York. Ask the New York Giants how that's going for them.
Oh yeah.
So
sorry.
So slowly but surely, you arrive at a place inside of the system where you say, who got left behind? And you have to look in the mirror. I mean, that's a tough conversation to have with yourself.
Yeah.
Because the realization is that you did leave someone behind. But when you bring the social, emotional piece of this and you're building learners and you say, hey, look at this particular group, what can I do? And you have to go searching for answers. I think that it was Isaiah that said it earlier, stop making assumptions and ask them, and ask your communities in their home language. By the way, at PS 13, we have no fewer than 21 languages, of which English is one of them. So I've done some purposeful hiring, because if we want to have conversations in folks' home languages, I have to have the staff members to do that, and people have to know who those staff members are today. And then I promise, Paul, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, no.
Today.
Oh, we had you on.
We had a fourth grade student that speaks Mandarin today. Tell his teacher, you know, nobody here is going to be able to talk to my family. They speak Mandarin. They don't speak any English whatsoever. And you should have seen, and I wasn't there, but the teacher told me during one of our impact team meetings, ironically, you should have seen his face when the teacher said, no. We just have Miss Ling, our new guidance counselor, Miss Mo down in the kindergarten. We have Miss Chang. We have Miss Shi, we have, and his whole disposition, word chosen on purpose, his body language changed. All of a sudden he was connected.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a conversation, and I'm not going to pretend to know what that conversation looked like or sound like. I wasn't there, but I know that it happened. And I think that that's the point, in terms of partnering, and a sense of belonging.
Yeah. I also think it's also the community-based support, because we're working all across the country and everybody has different funding sources, and New York has a lot of money compared to other places. And so it's really using the wraparound services the community has and building relationships, and also going out into the community, not expecting them to, come to you. And so I think it's all of those things. I remember the retired Anthony Ledico of District 31. He said people were jumping up for joy that they had a 45% survey return. He goes, we got less than half. Why is anyone happy about this? We have we have ideas for half of our stakeholders. And that really stuck with me when we were in that think tank. And so that lives here. So like every student, teacher, principal, it all lives in this model through us partnering with people and learning what to do. And if we're really going to reimagine education, like everyone says they're going to do, these are the components that we believe have to live in the system to honor the dignity of our kids and their unbelievable intelligence and expertise and value. And I think that we're really trying to do things very different. And so I'm not going to try to sell you that this is going to be done in a year. This will be done well. It'll be done well. And we will prioritize with you where to begin and where to start based on your context. And it doesn't mean that we're not gonna get interventions in place immediately for reading foundation or whatever it is. We have to do those things. We understand that there has to be some right now things, but this is a long haul opportunity to really think differently about teaching and learning. What do y'all think? Do you agree?
I think you wrapped it up beautifully.
Wow, I didn't even mean
Put a
to
bow
wrap
on it.
up. Anybody have any last words? I'm gonna unbutton my shirt
There you go.
so I look cool. I'm just kidding. Well, I thought I'd look cool like this, but I have a fever, so I'm kind of cold.
Well, no, you really did. You pulled it all together. And over, all these years we've had partnering with schools and districts, we are so confident that this is what we need, that we're dedicating not only all of the work we do to it, like, as you said, it's been what we've been doing, what we've been learning, but the next 6 months of our interactions with people online, this is our focus. So for the next 5 collaborative conversations every third Thursday, we're digging into one of those 5 building blocks. And there's something we're incredibly excited about. I'm going to leave this up for a second so you can scan that. We'll share it in a follow-up too. But we have our leadership inquiry cadre getting started.
Yes.
And yeah, we're more than excited. And that begins very soon, November 5th. But it's collaborative inquiry. So we need you, we need your expertise, we need your strengths, your experience, and your passion. So this is for any leader in education to come and join us each of these months. We're going to have different experts on to serve as a brief panel, but really they're just to guide you through that inquiry. And as Paul said, this self-assessment's kind of like a dark alley. You can go there, but you shouldn't go there alone.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to go there alone. You're going to go there with colleagues from across the country, around the world, and with people from our team who are thrilled for the opportunity to get to support you.
And just a little shout out, like last year we did Build Back Wiser. We had about 1,500 registrations. It was really successful, which we didn't think it would be. This year, we took the best of that, and our best sessions last year were all collaborative. So this year there'll be like a 5-10 minute opening to kind of give us context around one of these bigger ideas of the framework. And then we've created a new quick fire inquiry protocol where leaders will be going to inquiry groups, and they'll follow a protocol to come out with what we hope, some possible solutions, because they're going to have all that cool expertise in their group. And we really want to make sure that when you think of leader, it's not just principals, it's not just teacher leaders. We can have parent leaders, we can have student leaders. And so all are welcome. And we really would love to have more parent representation in these leadership meetings. It's complementary. We want to give back. We want to help systems. And this is a kind of our way to do it. But we really want to pull in parents because they have a lot of expertise that we believe isn't really being used, and we need their voices to help make the MTSS model what it can be. Anybody else? Come on, I have a big mouth, so if you want to say anything, do it.
I think one thing I was thinking about this.
Thank you for
framework.
doing that.
Well, just thinking about this framework, I think honestly just honors again the humanity and dignity of the students and the families that we get to work with and the communities, right? So it just really does bring it down to that human level that where it's not being done to students and parents. I really appreciate that part, to bring us all, into this collective world together and to learn from each other and just give the respect to our students and give them the dignity that they deserve every day.
That's a better ending.
Beautiful.
I'm not even gonna do the harmonica.
No, thank you to our wonderful panel and to all our participants. We appreciate you sharing your two most valuable resources, your time and your attention.
Oh, but we
And
have to give a shout out. We have a book coming out in the spring, and there's 4 authors here. Isaiah, me, Isaac, Ingrid, Connie isn't here.
Mhm.
But does anyone want to tell the title? We could release the title. I don't know if I remember it.
Yeah.
I know. Where did we land?
Does Allison know?
She had to jump off. It's Pure Power 2.0, but it has a better subtitle than that.
Yeah, it's Pure Power Amplifying Voice with Culturally Responsive Assessment.
That sounds right.
That is correct. That is correct.
And it is a true collaborative effort. We are having a blast and learning a lot, and we can't wait to share it. Paul, hopefully you'll be a blind review on it because we would love to get your feedback. Awesome. We're done, right?
Thank you all. We love getting to work with you, and we'll see you next time.